Switching gears right here. This is probably the biggest story on the Hill, one of the biggest stories in Seattle. And we'll put this up. I don't have the quite title, but it's Carder Sawant over there. And it's the recall. And I think that what you're saying, there's our handcrafted motion graphic. I think what you're saying here is it's a strong turnout, right?
Yeah, strong turnout, and this is shifting gears, but there's a connection. I mean, there are plenty of reasons to connect the recall of Kshama Sawant to the protests of 2020, to the efforts to recognize the tragedy and the miscarriage of justice in cases like Charlene Lyles. The recall is based on some charges that grew right out of those protests and Sawant's activities in there. And some people see it as an effort to suppress that kind of free speech. But yes, we have a week left to go in the voting, and turnout has been very strong with some precincts in the district, because only District 3 gets to vote in this. Some precincts have already reached like 50% turnout for their voters. A lot of the areas along the Lake Washington shores, a lot of the northern areas of the district, some of the areas that tend towards more centrist, more what you might say in Seattle conservative voters, they've got their ballots in early. But we're also seeing some good signs around Pike Pine and Broadway too, where turnout's around 25% already. With a week to go, that's really early activity, and folks really weren't sure what they would see in this election because it's such a strange one, falling on December 7th in the middle of holidays and a really busy time of year for people.
Yeah, and Sawant voters in the past have been known to be day of, and a few days of, or day of, or a few hours before. Yes. That's why we see sometimes these swings in the numbers, right?
Yeah, I mean, a big part of Sawant's political strategy is to work with people and to champion people who are the busiest in our society, who have the least amount of time to think about these things and to do things like actually get their ballots in, and because they're busy, they're workers, they're renters. And she's actually out there with Get Out the Vote teams that are printing ballots on the streets of Capitol Hill and the Central District to try and help folks who've lost their ballot. It's really a voter by voter, get out the vote strategy versus the recall side, which, powered by lots of big money this week, thanks to a new PAC, a new political action committee. That. So this new Better Seattle group has come along, and they've bought TV ads, $100,000 to Comcast for a $10,000 ad that I think aired during a football game. I think I saw just suddenly. It's that's not like it's targeted just District 3 voters. Everybody in Seattle and the region is watching these ads, but you couldn't drive a more stark difference between the campaigns than something like that.
That's real interesting. But you said this ad is seen everywhere.
Oh, sure. It's being broadcast across Seattle.
I only bring that up because Comcast, for sure, can target by zip code.
Yeah.
So they bought the whole city. Huh?
So this is a TV purchase ad, though. So
right.
As far as targeting goes, I mean, so someone at Comcast maybe. They might be targeting down to IP addresses for all we know.
Well, no, what I'm saying though is so I used to buy ads.
Yeah.
And we used to be able to target the Central District 98122, and that's the only place our ads would play, right? Because when we couldn't afford to play an ad for the whole city, we could afford to play it to our zip code. It's just an interesting observation because the D3 could be targeted off, but people are putting big money in here. The big money thing backfired last time with Sawant. I mean, this isn't $1 million like last time, but I know in her race for her seat, there was a lot of people that I know that were indifferent, like, hey, whatever, who cares? Like a lot of people in Seattle, or even some people who were going to vote for her opponent. It was Egan Orion.
Yes.
And when that $1 million came in, in our neighborhood, we always been the underdogs.
Yeah.
And people were like, that's the and encourage people who weren't even going to vote to come out and vote for Sawant.
Yeah, it's possible we might see the same kind of backlash this time. A lot of the money in the PAC especially is driven by developers. There's a developer PAC that's powered part of it. There's the folks that are behind the big convention center, the $2 billion expansion of the convention center downtown. Their principal of the firm, he's a backer of the effort. And so, yeah, there could be a backlash. One big difference is, though, this is such a short amount of time. I'm getting this information out, with weeks ahead of the vote this time instead of months like we were in the Egan Orion race. Whether it has time to kind of also inform people the same way is really going to be determined next week. And it's going to be, probably a really close call.
Right. Now, I won't hold you to something scientific. I don't know if you could, even if I did want to.
I've already been pulling stuff out of thin air, so let's go. Keep bringing it.
But what's the vibe like up there on the hill? Like, you're on the hill, and I know even the hill has its microcosms of this neighborhood and that neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, these are weird days with COVID restrictions. Are still have people. It's a weird flow. There's a lot more people on the street now. In general, drawing really big brush strokes around Pike Pine and Broadway. You'll see a real presence of Sawant people. A lot of get out the vote efforts. Pretty good response from folks. You start to get more towards like 15th Avenue and 19th Avenue, and you see the response from people on the street more like "get out of my face" and they're moving on with their lives. Once you get past 19th, you start to find all the signs. That's where all the Recall Sawant signs are starting to reappear. A lot of the Recall folks complain that folks are ripping down their signs, else there'd be more up. But I haven't seen a ton of those reports. The signs are pretty prolific, and so that. You also see some pockets, though, like a real big pocket of support for Sawant is around 23rd and Union. That pocket of businesses and people who live there, at least the ones that are putting up signs and kind of posters and those kinds of things, seem like a pretty strong Sawant crowd and pretty against the recall and likely to vote no.
This sounds like it might be kind of like the last, might be a nail biter, huh?
Yeah, I think given if you look at the turnout, so we've got a real strong early vote. You're probably still going to be confused on election day. We're probably still going to see numbers that we can't really trust, given that it's so what we've seen in the past from the recall or from the Sawant campaign has been such a strong last minute push that I'm not really sure what margin the recall folks would have to see to be comfortable. My guess is they will not be comfortable. So there shouldn't be any early declarations, unlike the general this time where people warned about that and said, oh, you don't want to call Bruce Harrell the winner early, but it turned out, yeah, he won.
Right. And what does this mean either way? Now, if recall wins or Sawant wins?
Sure. So if folks join Sawant and vote no against this recall, nothing happens as far as someone being removed from office or any of those things, but it's a huge victory for Sawant as far as her place in the politics of Seattle. If people vote yes, that's when things go into motion. There's the election certification needs to happen, and then she's immediately removed from office, at which point the city council works to name nominate a replacement, and then name that replacement to finish the rest of the year until the next general can be called. So that would be next November of 2022, when they would elect a person to finish her term, which then only lasts another year or so for another D3 election. So on the no side, we get Sawant rising above this huge push against her legacy,
too, right?
and probably emboldened. On the other side, we get an absolute cascade of elections and a bunch of political real turmoil in the district, and what will likely be quite a bit of changes for the way the district has been led on the city council.
All right. Well, I know we'll be looking to you to keep us informed here.